And in it, we answer real-life love and advice dilemmas and queries and quandaries from the good people around Australia. And we turn to some of the wisest people in the literary world to help answer those problems. And tonight, we have two incredibly wise people here to help you. I'm going to introduce them in the order of which they emerged from the birth canal. Our first guest this evening writes books, TV, screenplays, columns, essays, and feature journalism because he is a fancy lad. He is the author of a memoir, The Family Law, the travel book, Geisha Adventures of the Queer East. And they were both nominated, by the way, for the Australian Book Industry Awards. And he also wrote the quarterly essay on safe schools, which was called Moral Panic 101. He's got some big fans over at Sky and the Australian and News Limited in general. And we say a big hello to Andrew Bolt tonight if you are tuning in. Furious. He also co-wrote and created 3 seasons of the award-winning SBS TV series The Family Law. And this is actually a bit much, to be honest. His sold-out debut play, Torch the Place, ran from February to March of this year before the world ended. Please welcome Benjamin Law.
Hi, Jess McGuire.
Hello.
Hey.
But who's the second guest going to be? Nobody knows. I'll introduce her. Our next guest is a writer and actor working across print, theatre and screen. Her work includes the play Single Asian Female and the SBS show Homecoming Queens, which she co-created, co-wrote and starred in. Her latest play, Miss Penny, will be staged at the Belvoir Street Theatre as when?
Who knows, Jess?
Great answer.
Oh,
It'll Michelle Law.
Mm.
Wow, it is a deafening roar of clapping when it's just me, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I am assured that some people are watching just to see where the funding's going. So that's good news. Now, are you guys familiar with the concept of Take It From Me? Do you know what you're here to do?
Vaguely and kind of.
Yeah, I also.
Why don't you explain it to us? For the people who haven't, this is what I always do at events. So it's just like, for people who might not understand, why don't you explain it to them? Not me, because I
No,
know.
for real, slow, simple
audience.
people who have maybe an agent that agrees to events that they don't know about. Yeah, you're right, Ben. That's a great idea. So what we have done, we've had a link up on the internet, a wild place, for the last month or so. People have been submitting their romantic catastrophes anonymously, although one woman definitely did it with her full name, and I Googled her.
We'll keep her anonymous.
And I just think you need to end that affair because I will contact you. No, I'm not going to contact anyone. But, yeah, you didn't have to put your full name. You definitely chose to, lady, and I respect that. Anyway, so we've got this big list of questions, more than we can possibly answer, but we're going to try and hit as many as we can. That said, just to keep me on my toes, because as though hosting a Writers' Festival event via my goddamn phone wasn't complicated enough, if you have a last-minute question that you would like to shoot through to us, you can ask it, if you're comfortable, on Twitter, maybe create a throwaway account if you need to. Just attach the hashtag MWFdigital. I'm going to be keeping an eye on that, so don't write hurtful things because it will really put me off my game. And we will try and answer some on-the-go questions as well. But in the meantime, I got pages. I got the receipts of everybody's broken lives.
Or are they just blank pieces of A4
No,
paper?
only one page is a lesbian dilemma. That's the entire thing. No, it's not. It's not. But usually my people are renowned, I find, when I host these events for writing essay-length questions with every nuance possibly considered. And I respect that.
The people workshop stuff. We like it.
We love to think about it. All right, so I'm going to give you your first question. And they've written their name, so I'll just go with it. Anne from outside Bendigo asked this question. Does a mutually agreed 2-month break mean that he's not interested? Now, to be fair, he is in lockdown in inner city Melbourne and I'm on a farm outside Bendigo. He's married and so am I. It's an online virtual reality type relationship and it always has been. Is this a real relationship? Will it be? Or is there virtually no relationship and never has been?
Oh,
so possibly the only two people in town who can continue their relationship as it always was before COVID have taken a mutually agreed upon 2-month break from virtual reality relationship outside of their respective IRL marriages. Your thoughts, Laws?
I think I've only just gotten my head around what the situation even was, but I think I get it now. And so you'd have like this kind of electronic relationship outside of their marriages for how long prior to COVID?
We don't know.
But we don't know that, do we?
We don't know. We don't know that information.
I was curious, and I guess they were like, I don't know, sending each other like
sext, I imagine.
Wank pics and stuff like that.
Do you know what? The wording of like online virtual reality type relationship seems to me even a bit more than like just chatting, like almost like they're in a game like World of Warcraft.
Yeah. But also like
plowing each other's fields. I don't know what happens in that game.
The emotional investment you place into online relationships aren't real. You know, as much as we like to distinguish between cyber relationships and IRL relationships, like if you are having that kind of emotional vulnerability through an electronic space, like that's real. I remember when the pandemic started, I'm like, oh my God, there is going to be so much bad theatre about affairs that were completely jettisoned by coronavirus. But at the same time, I also acknowledge that that's real because you're now at home with your marital partner, so you can't continue it anyway.
That's what I was thinking, because it depends on whether the marriages themselves are open. So she hasn't really disclosed that, and whether her partner and his partner are aware that this is happening. Because I'm curious as to, because he's in lockdown, it might seem that, you know, they can't go anywhere. And so his partner might be like, who are you texting all the time? Why are you playing Second Life / World of Warcraft all the time? So that's maybe.
Who's that paladin you're chatting with?
Yeah, maybe. And maybe it's like 2.5 months is the time when his partner goes back to work or something.
So I imagine like previously, pre-COVID, this kind of like online illicit to and fro. Here comes a cat. Like previously,
live television, baby.
This online to and fro was probably an escape, but now during coronavirus, actually, it's the opposite. Like you would feel held hostage and trying to, I don't know, dodge your way through to covertly message this person that you're not married to, which sounds very stressful.
Also, I mean, the real question I'm really hearing here, and Michelle, tell me I'm wrong, but don't, is she really wants to know, like, is it even a relationship? Can a 2-month virtual reality thing even be a relationship? Or not 2 months, but they've been off for 2 months.
Yeah, it really depends on how deep they've gotten. I mean, if they've never met in real life, I think that's tricky. And the fact that they're both already married and imagine committed to these relationships, I'd say it's probably not like a tangible thing.
I think all relationships, whether online or IRL, are going through this big kind of like WTF moment, you know, like especially if you don't live in the same household. So you're not alone in this situation. But I would also like allow yourself to have a break and get all the basics that you need right, because it's stressful enough without having to live this kind of electronic extramarital kind of maze-like situation for yourself. You know, like you're allowed to actually just step back and say, why don't we park that, because times are not normal at the moment, and let's reassess when we get out of it and can start buying groceries without masks again.
And do you think that the mutually agreed upon 2-month break means he's not interested? I say keep the cat, by the way, Michelle. I've got no problem with the cat being in here. Mean that he's not, I think he's not interested. I think he's not interested, maybe. I think maybe it's too complicated. If it's mutually agreed upon, they've decided on this break, maybe it is just the fact that, like, as you say, balancing like that extracurricular stuff virtually with your real life when you're locked with your real life person, it's very stressful. Maybe just leave it.
Exhausting. And also just like we can't read his mind, you can't either, but also accommodate for the possibility that he just isn't into it.
Yeah, and prepare yourself for that as well.
Yeah. Best of luck outside Bendigo.
Yeah, good on you, mate. Good on you. Okay, number 2 for this evening. I broke up with my boyfriend a year ago, and despite moving on emotionally, I still feel a twang of physical pain when I see their name come up on social media. In these crazy corona times, I think my heart is craving a deeper and intimate connection with someone as opposed to casual hookups. How can I continue the healing process while we are in perpetual lockdown? That is from Anonymous.
Well, first of all, like my heart goes out to you because lockdown is I imagine, and from what we've experienced as non-Victorians, hard enough. And that kind of craving of comfort and familiarity and of the good times is so natural. Like that's to be expected. That's not surprising either. But I'd also ask you to reflect on why you broke up as well. And that's also important. You know, there was a reason why you two split, and maybe those reasons have faded into obscurity for good reasons. But I think it's just worth remembering that the relationship that you had was complex. As for the pain on social media, I think there are some practical steps you can take.
Yeah, I think it's important also to not idealize the situation because everyone's really feeling really emotionally vulnerable at the moment. I was in a similar situation where I broke up with my long-term partner like around a year ago, and
I felt that. I felt that when that happened.
For sure, I really did. Yeah, and I went into lockdown and I was living alone with my cat, and it was a really tricky time. And you sort of just have to let yourself cry it out and be sad for a while. But then also remember, like, if you weren't in lockdown, would you be feeling this yearning? My instinct is probably not. You'd probably have moved on to someone else or be enjoying your life in other ways. But because of the extraordinary circumstances we're in, it's sort of sticking around, which is, unfortunately sort of the nature of things.
It's also hard as just that lack of human contact, because when you say, I want something deeper, and I don't want casual sex, I guess the option of casual sex has been taken away from you. So it's that emotional intimacy that you're craving at the moment. And it makes sense that your mind would snap back to the last, fully realized emotional intimacy that you had. I guess I'm not providing any solutions or answers. I mean, there are good things that you can probably do for your own health, like mute someone.
Yeah.
And
Mute.
maybe just give yourself a timeline, like mute for a set period, and after that set period, reassess whether you can and should continue muting them. Protect yourself.
Don't go on their profile.
No, don't go on their profile, which you will still do after you mute them because we're all fucked. Yeah. What, have you guys ever blocked anyone? I honestly, it would take you wanting to try and kill my family and me for me to go, you know what? I'm like borderline. I don't want to make a big deal of it, but I'm borderline muting you. Like there are people that are horrible human beings that I have not blocked, and I should. No, there's some horrible ones I have blocked, but do you know what I mean? It takes a lot to block an ex because it feels like it's a big thing that you're almost saying like, I can't get over you, and no one wants to be that weak. So God bless the mute function at least, which is like the weak person's block, I guess.
I highly recommend a block. I'm a big fan of the block, but the thing for me is that I'm blocking someone for my own health and like benefit.
Do you tell them that you're going to do it?
No.
Just keep it a tidy surprise next time they check your profile.
They try to stalk me. They're like, oh, what's happened? But no, it's like, for me, it's more just for me. It's never a vengeance thing or to make someone feel bad. It's very much like, I need time to not think about any of this. And so I'll block you.
Right. Well, I think that was very wise. I hope that was some help. Anon. Here you are. Okay. This is from Cave. My husband and I have been separated by circumstance. I'm here in Oz and he's working in Taiwan. Oh. We haven't seen each other since January, and it's unlikely we'll be able to see each other again before 2021. It's unbearable. So what I'd like to know is ... What's the funniest / weirdest / grossest story of self-love you know? I'm running out of ideas. Thank you.
I think buy.
Let's get some wank suggestions in here. Let's do it.
Buy yourself
Absolutely.
a really good sex toy.
Yeah. The sex
Wait,
toy
don't look that excited is the response. I'm so sorry I nodded so
the
emphatically.
toy industry has
Do
been
it.
going off in 2020. You know, people are treating themselves, and you should, because like good investment, you know, like, you know, it's like when you're looking for a rental and you're like, oh, that's my budget. And then sometimes you're like, maybe I should just look at what's $20 over. And suddenly the world.
I'm masturbating now.
Hand free.
You're joking, but she's actually masturbating. So I would say, you know, spend just that little bit extra more if you can, because like a good sex, you don't want to chuck a dildo down like your apartment garbage chute. It's the most demoralizing thing in the world.
Not speaking from experience.
And I should know, you know, that wasn't quite good, just banging its way
Is
down.
it the clunk of defeat that you hear as it battles its way down the piping?
And, you know, like the on button on the way down, and it does a little bit bleating. So yeah, a good sex toy. You know, writer Anna Spargo Ryan tweeted this really amazing vibrating facial cleaning exfoliator thing the other day, and I'm like, that looks amazing, and it also looks like something you'd stick up your cooch. So it's like 2 for 1.
Things that people have been doing, my mates have been doing, is like getting really into skincare.
These are not mass. No. To be fair, she said self-love. Now, don't worry, Cave. I'll give you actual wanking tips. But Michelle, continue with skincare for a little bit. Fill in the time.
Focus on, because many routines involve so many steps and it takes up a lot of time. And it is a physical act of self-love, because you're touching yourself, you're keeping yourself clean. And
I imagine you could do the same to your genitals as well. You know, that those 12-step Korean beauty. Like, imagine if your schlong or your cooch could look as amazing as a Korean skincare model. You know, like you could do the same thing.
Mine already
a lot of
does.
them have surgery, so you'd have to get like labiaplasty.
Like double
Maybe you could just put that that gel on that I think Drew Barrymore used on Instagram, and then it wrinkles it really hard, and then you peel it off and you've suddenly got hot, fresh skin. I don't know if it works downstairs, but ask Drew Barrymore. I don't know.
The other thing I would say, given your situation, you know, you've got a partner abroad and you're here, is look, we all know that virtual sex is pretty overrated. Like, the angles are bad, your dick ends up looking like the offcuts at a butcher. Like, it's all fucking, you know, it's not right. But what I would say is you can invest in like a Korean ring light. You can get really for your ring. You can get like really good lighting set up in the age of virtual sex. There's a website, Make Love Not Porn, which is started by this amazing porn entrepreneur, and she's all about real life couples. And I'm not just spruiking product. She has a really great part of that website that gives amateurs good lighting and framing tips. And some of that does involve equipment, but some of it's also just about like looking at angles, pre-recording stuff, experimenting. So look at that as well. And if there is an overhead, maybe, you know, that's an act of you're investing in that.
I loved all of those tips. And she did sort of want...
Oh, you had that pause.
She did want sort of funny, weird, grosser stuff. I know she's running out of ideas. All I will say is I was made aware of a deal on Catch of the Day, or whatever it's called, that website. And it's something called the Satisfy Her Pro or 2 or something. I don't know. It seems like there's a sequel. It's $55. Now, I won't tell you my own experience with it, but I will say that the Google review is simply partner fainted. And it checks out.
Jess,
Get
do
it,
you want to be
girl?
buying like sex toys of Catch of the Day? Because like whenever I've seen products come up there, they all look invariably like flammable, going to fall apart, they're half made of asbestos, you know, like do you want to be that inside your person?
Listen, it had sold out on Catch of the Day by the time I was on the hunt, but it's back on, I understand. So I've been getting texts from lady friends asking me for hot tips. So glad I could help / reveal a little bit too much about my trip. Yeah. Okay, all right. So what have we got next here? Okay, all right. I know this isn't right at all. Anonymous just wants to know, are you the top and bottom Benjamin Law?
Oh my God.
Oh, I don't want want to fucking hear this.
Okay, block your ears.
Oh, you can answer. Fantastic.
The whole thing is like, I really respect whatever.
I can't leave.
That's right. If you want that $20 and a 6-pack of Red Bull, Michelle Law, you'll stick it out.
But, you know, like, this is a conversation not just for queers, not just for, like, same-sex attracted people. I think there's a conversation for all, because you can be a woman in a heterosexual relationship and you can be a bit of a top as well. She has left her body. She's left her fucking body. What I will say is the beauty of being in a same-sex relationship is, like, you get to switch it up. And I think
How good.
that's fun. You know, like, you've all got interesting things to play with. I respect the people who, like, only want to get off in a certain way, you know, and get off. They know what turns their crank, but it's kind of like, look, so, okay. Yeah. Anyway, that's your
I feel like you might be missing out on some stuff. I have to say, queer ladies have really adopted that terminology, which has traditionally always sort of really been in, I guess, in queer men circles. I know we always had like butch and femme,
Yes.
which always seemed to me a really boring binary, but that's not descriptive of what you do in bed. So I'm finding that a lot more now people are talking about top and bottom. But to me, bottom just says, I'm lazy. That's what I hear.
Yeah.
That's what I hear.
We're all in that mood.
You know what I mean?
But I would also encourage, you know, straight cisgender dudes especially to really embrace or experiment just getting dominated by women. Whether that involves pegging or not, that's up to you. Don't be afraid of your butthole, because there is a whole world of possibility there. But yeah, just
a whole
like,
new world.
So many women are really terrified of their own assholes. A lot of straight men don't wipe properly. It's a really upsetting thing that I have.
Now Ben and I are upset talking about straight men. Oh, come on.
Really upsetting.
This is a sophisticated event. I don't want to hear about their butts.
Yeah, let's move on.
Yeah. All right. Well,
clean your assholes.
Yeah.
Ben, it started just as an honestly quite rude question about your private life, but I think we really got into some sexual dynamics there and I enjoy it. Thank you. All right. This is from Emmy. Emmy says, as a newly single babe navigating my way through first-time Tinder use and Melbourne lockdowns, oh, Emmy, poor thing, how can I chat to various guys for another 5 weeks without being absolutely revolted by them before meeting in real life? And Emmy, I think you've got a real catch-22 happening there. The key is to meet the man before 24 hours before he disgusts you. No, I mean, I had limited experience with straight dudes on dating apps. I had a breakup with a woman and I went out with one dude afterwards and he honestly set them back. I mean, it's been about 1.5 years. Like, I just have not bothered since. Wasn't an awesome experience. Michelle, I'm assuming you maybe have a little bit more experience in chatting with straight men, possibly on dating apps.
Yeah.
Do you have any help for her?
Well, the problem is that 98% of straight men are revolting. And
that's just a stat from the ABS, so there's nothing we can do about it.
Absolutely. I mean, heterosexuality is proof that sexuality is not a choice, because you could choose. But I've recently been in the same boat and I've been looking on like Bumble and Hinge, and it is a real minefield. And it's really just like a numbers game. You sort of, oh, yes, Jess.
I have a question without notice. She's saying Tinder. My understanding is limited again, but I understand that like Tinder might be a bit more like hookupsy, which might not be the kind of app she's wanting to get into while she's in lockdown and she can't meet people. What have you found for non-dead shit acquiring has been the best app that you've used?
Hinge is pretty good. It's more like meaningful emotional connection centered. Bumble is pretty good, but sort of a little bit hookup-y as well.
Which was the one where you basically write a short story about yourself?
That's like OkCupid.
Oh,
that's like too far gone.
No.
But,
that's what I went on. That's what I went on to. It's terrible. Terrible.
All the serial killers are. But sorry.
Fucking hell.
But I would recommend just slide into someone's DMs. Someone that you've been interested in for a while, who you think is good looking, and you're like sussing them out, and you're just like, oh, we follow each other, and you're like, you seem cool, and then you already have a basis for like something to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say I've had more. I don't have the apps. I had them briefly, debacle, deleted, and I've definitely had more luck either like in real life or kind of mutual interests, and maybe the odd DM slide has brought good people. So maybe be a bit like that.
Start off with a subtle react to one of their stories and then go from there.
Or I know one friend of mine who's just like, fuck the subtlety, like go back to posts from 2015 on Instagram, like all of them, and then slide into their DMs. They'll get the message.
Yeah, they will get the message, and that message is restraining order. So please don't do that, I would say. That's creepy as shit.
No, I just respected the flex.
Yeah, maybe like I reckon you can go back like a couple of cursory scrolls, like maybe like 2 scrolls of the first thing that comes up on the screen that says, I think you're cute. I've clearly gone back enough to let you know you didn't just turn up in my explore. I'm going to give it a double tap, maybe 1 or 2, and then a respond to a story.
That's nice.
I think that's subtle, but it's not like, guess what? I found your feed. Like, it's too much.
Yeah, don't go beyond 6 months. Like, within the range of, like, 1-2 months of liking posts is good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've nailed that. Okay, let's move on to someone who absolutely didn't tell me their full name. This feels complicated too. I feel like if the first question was complicated, you guys might need some kind of like crime map to follow this, but I could be wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's give this person a name. Let's call them Sharon. It's not their name, which again, I reiterate, I know fully because you really filled out that form, Sharon. Anyway, I've started dating a guy who I was friends with when I was in high school.
Sweet.
Okay. That was 10 years ago. I slept with his best mate 6 years ago. We both swore that we would never tell anyone as he lied to me and he was cheating on his girlfriend, who he's now engaged to. I've always regretted it, and the guy has always blamed me for him making a big mistake. What a turd. Forget him. Anyway, when and how do I tell the guy I'm currently dating? Does she have to tell the guy that, oh, it is his best mate, but then it reveals an affair?
So the ethical stuff is, revealing the affair and breaking confidence, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because she's allowed to sleep with whoever she wants to beforehand. And if she slept with his best mate in the past, in general, like it might be like a ha-ha awkward, but not even that really. We're all grown-ups. It's a sexual time in our lives. But the fact that that happened and we know that that's actually an extramarital affair or some kind of affair, I mean, she's not even asking should I, but I think the question is should you tell? And then if she does, how? Yeah,
I've got more questions than I have answers.
Ask me. I've got her full name. I'll just get her number and tap her in. Huge mistake, Sharon.
Yeah, similarly, my question is, why do you want to tell your current partner this? My second question is, what do you think will happen? Because, all of these things have consequences and you need to think logically about what those consequences are. Will it actually affect your own current relationship with this guy? Will he maybe be freaked out that he has discovered that he's not that he should be freaked out, but is there the potential for him to have that freak out, which is not really legitimate, but people react in weird ways? Is it fair for you to break confidence and potentially ruin someone else's relationship? I just don't really understand something that's in your past, why that necessarily needs to be revealed. What's your take?
Do you think that it's one of those things that she sort of feels like if this goes really well, if we end up together and we're married and blah, blah, and like let's say in 10 years' time after that, it's going to feel like a betrayal that he didn't know?
That's what my vibe is.
Yeah.
Question.
Right.
It sounds like she wouldn't be considering this unless it was a serious relationship that she's in now. And the fact that she's mates and this guy that she slept with is now getting married to probably someone they're all mates with as well. It's tricky. I mean, I think it's honesty is really important in a relationship. So I probably, if it was me, I would tell the guy. As to when and how, I guess it depends on how serious they are and how long they've been seeing each other. Wouldn't do it the day of the wedding. I'd probably just sort of have a little, home cooked meal. Got something to talk to you about tonight, so fucking put your big boy pants on, and then just strap in.
Okay. Do you think that she sort of has implied that, like, the guy that she had the affair with, which she didn't know, he's lied to her. She didn't know that he had a girlfriend.
I know this. This changes everything.
You did say that. Sorry.
Yeah. She didn't know. And he's really trying to attribute blame to her for being responsible for his biggest mistake. So almost like it feels to me like she feels the burden of, if I do this, do I also implode his life? And I don't know that she needs to feel guilt for that, but there will be real ramifications if it comes out.
But I'm also like, you only really have control over your own actions, and what are your intentions behind your actions? If it's to just simply be truthful with your current partner, I think that's important because it will affect the way that he sees his friendship with this guy. And if that, then, it might be a blessing if this fiance didn't know and she's just like, well, I can't be with someone who is unfaithful.
The other thing is, like, there's an element of your own self-protection and self-care in here because, like, if your current partner and his mate hang around a lot, you're going to be hanging out with his mate and his partner as this kind of weird, awkward. It's like the plot from Closer, starring Julia Roberts and Natalie Portman. It's weird, and maybe you don't want that in your life, and it might be better to clear the air with your partner and say.
So at least he knows.
So at least he knows. Maybe he will want to keep his distance from his best friend because his best friend has not acted with much honor if he was lying about his relationship.
Blaming Sharon.
Yeah, I mean,
don't like it.
That male friend sounds like a pretty toxic presence.
Fucking drop him. Like, pull yourself out of the wedding.
Yeah, get out of there, babe. All right, well, I think we can agree it's a complicated situation, but I also think that you, Sharon, have no shame to carry. You were lied to. You didn't do anything wrong, and whatever you choose, we understand that you're doing it through possible, I don't know, maybe just get out of that whole friendship group, to be honest. I would say there's more fish in the sea, but we've just heard that straight men are disgusting on dating apps in our previous question. So I don't know.
If their friendship ends, don't feel bad about it. That's not your fault, for every season.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. Well, look, this might end up being relevant to Sharon. Next question is from Jen, who asks very simply, what's the best way to write a profile for a dating site?
Over to Michelle.
It depends on what app or profile you're creating. If it's something, it depends on also what you're looking for, what you're out there.
I hear ya.
I think in terms of like stuff like Bumble will give you a series of options to give as much information about yourself as possible. Like, I'm Pisces, I'm this height, I don't...
That's actually very important information if you're dating a Pisces. We're a sensitive people.
Oh my God, Jess, you're Pisces as well.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Pisces. Anyway.
How did you not know? I cry myself to sleep. Not anymore.
Yeah, I think you want to give some but not all. You want to drop a little bit of get people intrigued. Do a mixture of photos. So some where you are showing your personality, but others where you just look really good.
No group shots where they have to figure out which one's the hottie. And then especially not one where you have a group shot, but then to reveal which one you are, you put a bloody filter thing over everyone else's face like you've just been arrested for a sex crime and everyone... It's not a good look.
Also, don't put a photo of you with a friend who's better looking than you. That is a big thing that straight men do. And I'm like, mate, why bother?
No.
Can I actually ask you, expanding on that point, this is adjacent to that question, but what in a straight man's profile or a bisexual man's profile do you never want to see again?
Fish.
In Sydney, no, in Sydney at the moment, a lot of men are posing with guns.
What?
I don't know what that's about, but I also went on a Bumble date with the guy who was like, yeah, I've got a gun license. And I was like, why? And he's like, oh, I got it to impress the chicks. And I'm like, I'm not impressed. I'm going into fucking witness protection. Like, this
is that's
so
not sexy.
No. Also photos where there's selfies of men just in bed holding their camera over them because they're just like, it's really not flattering and it's lazy and it's not nice. I just want a crisp professional pixie studio photos. You don't want to give your professional headshots. Just ones where you look like a affable person who's also smoking hot.
Is that too much to
ask?
Is that
too much? It really is for straight women, though.
When I was briefly on it, with the settings allowing the male persuasion through to the keeper, there was one guy just a real triple threat of bad. Have just like uploaded the same photo 3 times. It was clearly taken like awkwardly on a webcam, right, where he looked quite surprised, like he'd been caught. And it was clearly in a motel with his like work briefcase in the background. Like everything about it said extramarital affair that I am just like, it was such a bad scene. And the date wasn't good either when we went on it. No, we didn't. Of course I didn't.
I love it.
Come on, mate. Get it together. I would never. All right. Okay, this is a really interesting question. This is from Pineapple Bun and says, hi, Ben and Michelle. I'd like to ask how you navigate being a person of colour in a relationship with a white person or even just someone from another cultural background. It's so difficult to talk about race and somehow even more so with someone that you want to spend the rest of your life with. How do you explain the low-level rage that powers us through every day? How do you explain why ethnic parents are kind of nuts? Is it doomed? Should we give up on dating guilos?
Guilos.
I'm so
Pineapple Bun is also bolo bao.
Yeah, bolo bao. Hello. Cantos represent. I think, look, I've been with my partner for quite a long time.
A billion years.
Since preschool.
Basically dead in gay years. And he is a guilo. He is a white man. One of the good ones.
I know 3 good ones.
Yeah. Is he one of them?
Yeah.
Oh, fucking hell. And I have to say, it's really interesting because I think part of the answer is exposure therapy because, you know, through just being with me throughout the years, he's seen what racism looks like. He now notices and understands what structural racism is. He does the reading, he does the work, he notices when he's in a room full of white people, like he feels like that is weird. And I don't think a lot of white people feel like that is weird when you're in a work environment or a social environment in one of the most multicultural nations in the world where it's just other white people. I mean, I feel that. People of color feel that in a room, but I don't think white people necessarily understand it until it's pointed out to them, and then it's like, oh my gosh, you can't not see it after that point.
But that's a long-term project.
Yeah.
And that, like, they have to be invested in doing that education.
Totally. And I think, you know, one of the difficult things is whether that other person is in good faith going to engage and want to engage with pretty confronting stuff without being defensive. So we have a mutual friend who I'm not going to name, but
Sharon.
Sharon. And this person, is black, and they were dating a white person at the time. And it was only, you know, like I also have to say, like, people of color, we also have our own revelations when it comes to understanding racism ourselves, where we read books, we read articles where it's like, oh my God, that articulates exactly what I'm talking about. And then we're able to actually have those conversations ourselves. You know, it doesn't come to us naturally. So I think now with in this era, in 2020 especially, no one's got any excuse. Like, you can read Rennie Edo-Lodge, you can read Layla Epsard, you can read, if you want to read a white person, you can read, who's that?
Robin DiAngelo.
Robin DiAngelo with white fragility.
Oh, yeah.
Like there is no shortage of books that can teach you about structural racism, about intimate racism. And some people won't want to come to the table with that. They won't be interested because it's a confronting thing to read about, that you're part of a power structure that oppresses people. And I would say if they're not interested in reading that stuff or not interested in coming to the table, that's a red flag. Like, that's a sign that they're not even curious about the stuff that causes you pain.
Yeah. I think I've, over time, as I've gotten older, have become really impatient about it. And I've done the reverse thing that people do with ethnicity functions on apps, where I've picked every single ethnicity except white Caucasian.
Oh my gosh, that is reverse racism, Michelle.
Yeah.
But you're also decolonizing.
Can we just stop and just give Andrew Bolt a moment to write a note about that statement? He has got deadline looming tomorrow.
Yeah.
I just find that when you're on a date with the POC, that like you already have that in common, and like regardless of what their ethnicity is. Because I've dated guys from pretty much every ethnicity now.
She has.
And it's very much just like, you don't have to explain anything to them. And I just am so tired that I'm like, this is what I need right now. That might change in the future. I think if I was to date a white guy again, he'd have to be really exceptional. Like Scott.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we went deep there.
But also, like, if it's a new person, like, take them out to like a concert or a speaking event or a movie about this sort of stuff, where they're going to be in the minority, and gauge how they act and react in that setting, because that's going to tell you a lot of what you need to know moving forward.
Great. I hope that was very helpful. That was good. That's good, guys. All right. Okay. This one looks to be complicated. My favorite.
Listening, we're paying attention.
All right. Daniel has messaged. And I'm so sorry. My mother is watching the football and she likes to heckle the game. And she's definitely put the volume down a little bit, but I'm just hearing her feeling stupid at whatever's happening in the Port Adelaide game. Stupid. Okay. That's right. So Daniel says, my best friend got into a relationship during the pandemic, and instead of being happy for her, I've spiraled into sadness and jealousy. At first, I thought it was because I was lonely and she was having this enviable time with a hunk, but now I'm not so sure. I think I might have been a bit in love with her, which has really confused me because I've known I was gay for more than a decade. How can I refocus my mind on being there for her instead of wallowing in anxiety and self-loathing? I feel like, and I want you guys to answer it, but I feel like we've all got to be very generous with ourselves at the moment, particularly if you're in like lockdown, pandemic. There are some complicated feelings and ideas about boundaries and where you can go and not go. You may not yet have to completely reevaluate your sexuality, but I also am a big fan personally of not really putting labels on sexuality, so then you can chop and change whenever you like and not have an existential crisis. But over to the laws.
What's your own? Look, my first thought is, when you say, how can I be there for her? If she's in a really happy relationship, you might not actually need to be there for her as much as you think. Do you know what I mean? Like, and if some space from her is what you need, like, that is also a legitimate thing that you're allowed to do, without, making it awkward or anything. Like, you can just carve out some space and time and create boundaries, and also focus on yourself and other relationships that you want to invest your time into for now. Because if she's in the throes of new love, she's going to, be over there for a while, and that's cool. And maybe that's actually what you need as well. So you might want to just put yourself first for a bit.
That's what I was going to say. Just focus on yourself for a while and the things that make you happy.
Yeah.
Because it sounds really hard.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you think about, though, the fact that he's sort of saying, I mean, obviously, I think that sometimes this could be a really great opportunity for him to take a moment to kind of assess what he would like in a relationship as a sort of, instead of feeling lost, it might be a really great time to figure out, you've seen her happy. What do you want? What would make you happy? Now, as far as the question of, like, he's known he was gay and now he's wondering if he thinks that he might be a bit in love with her. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? And have you known people to sort of have that happen and it work successfully? Or do you think that maybe he's just too in his head about his feelings right now?
I think there's a huge sense of loss that comes from when one of your deepest, best friends finds a romantic relationship and you don't have access to that person that you used to have.
Yeah.
Like, you are allowed to feel that grief because what you are experiencing is a change in that relationship and a loss, not of that person necessarily, but you won't ever get that same level of engagement and closeness that you ever had before. And that is sad. Like, you're allowed to acknowledge that that's sad and that is what you're feeling. It is a sense of grief. And in the middle of a pandemic, that feeling is so amplified and completely compounded. Those feelings of loss and anguish. So
yeah. I think it's also the closeness of having a friend like that and potentially having romantic feelings for them. But I think it's also worth remembering, like, you have different relationships for different reasons and they all provide different things. And there might be a lot of things that the hunk can't provide that you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Love is a very deep and complicated thing and it's not that straightforward. And, sometimes those worlds, someone's provided a lot of something for you and you just lost it. And it can feel like a heartache and it can be really easy to confuse that heartache with, like, is it love? But maybe it is just a really intense friendship and you're missing it right now. Yeah. It's okay. You don't need to change any labels, not change anything, make any big announcements. Just be really gentle with yourself and understand that it's a complicated time, it's a complicated situation, and just know that she probably still loves you and you don't need to.
Exactly.
You don't need to get rid of her or whatever. Just be gentle.
And I think the other thing that can happen sometimes is our minds start to spiral. It's just like, do they not love me anymore? Do they not want to be friends because they're in this romantic relationship with someone else now? And you can, if you feel like you're in a good headspace to do this, say, hey, I've noticed that we don't have us time anymore. Is that something that we can get back, like maybe later this week? And I find sometimes, that little bit of reassurance that that person's still going to be there for you is enough to just carry you through something like this. Obviously, if you feel like those feelings are too complicated and that contact is going to tip you over the edge, maybe back on that. But if what you need is reassurance that that friend is still your friend, you're allowed to take the first step and they'll probably get back to you.
I like that. And Daniel, just personally, because I'm inclined to do a bit of wallowing in anxiety and self-loathing when things get complicated. You know what? Like, be really gentle with yourself. Go for walks, meditate. Like, I found this dude on YouTube that does, like, sleep meditation that is really affirming. And someone suggested it for me and I was like, and it's great. And just do things that are really good for you because it doesn't, her feeling for someone else, you're still great. It's all good for you, Daniel.
And I'm also sure you have nourishing relationships outside of that that have fallen by the wayside as you've invested that time, and think of who those nourishing people are and pay attention to them too.
Yeah, beautiful. I hope that helps, Daniel. Our next question is from Cecilia. Celia says, I have been in a relationship for 8 months now. He's cute, he's intelligent and has a good job. I mean, great. Yeah, sorry. But in this economy, has a good job is just has a job. Do you know what I mean?
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. Picks up dog shit every day. Gets paid for it. Got a good job. Yeah, he does. Good. Wow, great. Feels very Jane Austen-y. As far as I can tell, he's committed to me. I'm part of his family's weekly Zoom chats.
That's cute.
He's met my parents. We even briefly lived together during the first lockdown in Melbourne. We're both working from home at the time, so we thought that the alternative would be to not see each other for a few weeks. And it all seemed to be going well. A few weeks ago, I told him I loved him. His response, oh. I was quite hurt and confused, but we left it at that. I thought maybe he just wasn't ready to say the words. Then recently we had more of a conversation about it, and he told me he feels he's still getting to know me and he doesn't feel the same way yet. He said he's felt flat for weeks. The restrictions have cut him off from pretty much all of his hobbies, and maybe that's affected his feelings for me as well. He wants to stay together. I guess my question is, how long do I wait for him to love me back?
Oh, that's really hard.
But I will also say that we are not in a normal timeline. And, you know, right in that it is affecting how he feels right now. Like, I know so many people around me, their moods are absolutely crushed. And especially in Victoria with a proper lockdown, and even outside of the state where people just don't know what their future looks like anymore, it's very hard to assess what life ahead looks like for any of us. And the other thing I'd say is that when you tell someone you love them, that's a huge act of vulnerability and generosity. And that makes you scared. I'd also remind you that it's also scary to hear that as well, because it's like,
It's a lot of pressure.
yeah, well, pressure, and how do I feel? Am I going to be able to give this person what they need in that moment as well? So you're allowed to also acknowledge that they're also feeling vulnerable and scared, and they're worried that they might disappoint you too. So that's not a solution. I just want you to keep that in mind, that it sounds like you both are talking about your feelings, which is really, really important, because that's going to be an ongoing dialogue. And love is also complex. Like, you know, there are people who have been in love for a really long time who don't particularly like each other anymore. You know what I mean? But they still love each other. And so what one person's version of love might be actually quite different to someone else's too.
Yeah, I think keeping the channels of communication open is really important. Just checking in with each other, but not pressuring each other in any way just because of what the world is like at the moment. I think how long do you wait for him to love you back? I think that you got to check in with yourself and just, you know, every week or every month, how is the relationship still impacting your life in a positive way? Like, does it add something to your life? And then if it's just dragging on and you feel like you're not getting anything out of it, then it's probably time to let go.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's like a sad thing as well, because obviously he's going through a lot and feeling quite depressed sounding because of the lockdown and things. But also you got to think about yourself.
You got to think about yourself, and if there comes a point where the sense of being demoralized and or humiliated of not having that message and that feeling reciprocated back becomes too much, you're allowed to say, okay, well, fare thee well. You know, like, I loved you, but it's not healthy for me to keep loving you when it's not reciprocated. And that's something for you to gauge. And like Mish said, check in on a regular basis about how you feel about that. But it's tough. It's really tough.
It's tough, and it sounds like they were only together 2 months before everything really started going a bit crazy, and like it's a wild time. And I think that the advice of just, you know, for while it brings you joy, you know, it's just, I mean, I know it's just 3 words, and sometimes we show it through action, and sometimes that mental pressure of saying it can almost get too much in someone's head. So if he's showing you lots of love and that feels okay, maybe just be gentle that this is not a normal time. But yeah, it's hard, man.
And because you can't see the future ahead, one of the things to check back in on constantly is, are we having fun? Are we enjoying each other's company? Is this feeling like a loving situation right now? Because during COVID, that's kind of all that matters, really.
Yeah. 100%. 100%, Laws. Okay. Okay, so Claire wants to know. Okay, Claire wants to know, I find the whole small talk before you get to the juicy, interesting, insightful conversation excruciatingly dull. I end up thinking everyone is aggressively mediocre, and I just let it fizzle out. Any tips on elevating the conversation, creating space for deeper and more meaningful chats, or what signs I should be looking for that someone is open to connecting on that level? That is tough because I go deep fast.
Me too.
So you can't. Oh my God, we should.
Pisces, Jess.
We should.
Same wavelength.
Yeah.
Because I'm a Pisces, I tend to go all in immediately. And then I was chatting to a friend of mine and he was like, you don't have to show your entire self immediately. Like you can just give them drips and drops until they get to know you better. And so it's a bit of a
That
slow
doesn't sound accurate, Michelle. Just throw it at the wall and see what sticks.
No, like, tell me all your childhood traumas. What happened to you as a child?
It's for you. That's our Jess McGuire dates.
That's a conversation starter.
Yeah, it's really tricky, especially now, because nobody is able to meet new people in lockdown and everything is online. And so I tend to find if you're getting along with someone, I fucking hate the word banter. But if the conversation is going well and you feel like you're on the same wavelength in that sense, I think that's when you can start to go deeper into things when you're asking each other meaningful questions, and you can sort of gauge that just by it's really hard to describe, but just like the vibe of the conversation and where it's going. If you can drop in a question like maybe about something deeper like their family, and then if they just sort of push it aside and just start talking about, banal stuff like what they're doing that weekend, then you sort of get a sense of where they are at emotionally in comparison to you. Whereas if they take that and they're like, oh, well, my father left when I was 3, and then I'm like, that's my person.
That's it. He's honest, but he's also a little bit broken.
But no, but it's I think on like apps and stuff, you can sort of gauge pretty quickly whether people are open to those things because the conversation gets pretty boring very quickly. And if that's the case, just move on to the next person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Good. Well, look, we've probably got time for one quick question. This is from Sally, who asks, I'm worried I'll scream Brett Sutton's name instead of my husband's when we eventually have sex again. What advice do you have? Well, unless that's from Sally Sutton, who could maybe get away with it, we're in trouble.
The thing that immediately comes to me is you should suggest to your partner that you want to be gagged, and then in your mind you're actually thinking that Brett Sutton is gagging you and blindfolding you. So you already...
You went straight to a gag. I was like, role play, yes. You're the chief health officer. I'm a naughty, and you're like, no, stick a ball in, bite down on it, shut up.
I don't love it. I don't know about this event anymore.
Well, I'm just saying, look, if you don't want to scream out Brett Sutton's name, like I think there are two options. One, you're going to really scream his name. You can do the role play and pretend that your partner is actually a chief medical officer, or you can do the other thing, which is just like, the other role play is that the chief medical officer has made you, I don't know, actually, this whole role play thing, I had in my mind that
I was so there. I was so close, Ben. I was close.
I'm a couple of beers in, but that if you had to wear a mask in the role play, you're not going to scream a name, but that doesn't work because the role play would be the CMO telling you to wear a mask.
I reckon just go off. I reckon just do it. It'll be a good laugh.
It'd be hilarious.
Once I accidentally called my partner.
I hate this story.
Mark, because I just finished watching Bridget Jones' Baby.
Well, that is incredible. So on that note from the laws, I don't know what that advice was, but I think it's possibly a ball gag. Anyway, good luck with that, Sally. Good luck with that. Hey, it is time for us to wrap up this evening. It's been so wonderful having you with us. Thank you for everyone who sent in these very real questions. They are real questions. And I hope that if you're watching at home, you had a great time. I'm Jess McGuire on behalf of the Melbourne Writers Festival. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much to Benjamin Law, Michelle Law.
Thanks, Jess McGuire. Thanks, Melbourne Writers Festival.
And up MWF.
Happy Friday, everyone. Stay safe. Be well.
Stay safe. Cover up. Be kind to each other. Bye.